Hello and welcome to another episode of That Show on the Weekend. You're watching episode 4, A New Hope, as in A New Hope for the new Star Wars movie by J.J. Abrams.
Mm-hmm.
So our first topic, the European Commission officially presents the plan to address Netflix like geo-blocking. So if your account is made in America and you go to like Germany or Russia or whatever, all of a sudden you can't access your Netflix account that you paid for. The European Union is trying to prevent that from happening. They want you to be able to access it anywhere if you paid for it.
Wait, they want you to?
I believe that's what it is. Yeah, under these new proposals, services would need to be made available within the entire European Union, however, with the...
Well, my understanding of it is, if you are from America and you go to any other country, you can still access your Netflix, but it points it directly to the American Netflix. So if you're in, let's say, Holland, you don't access the Holland Netflix, you get access to the American Netflix.
Now, how would you know that? Like, is that like when you log on?
Mm-hmm.
So only afterwards?
Well, so when your account is created, they can tie it to a country. That isn't an issue. But when you're in another country, it's like, oh, you sign in, your country set, or your regional set is America, and even though your IP address is you're in Australia, here's the American Netflix. And I guess it's interesting that they're addressing that and making sure that everybody gets access to the Netflix no matter where they are. The other issue is I still don't understand net or regional blocking other than, licensing issues, which is dumb in general.
Because we used to see regional blockings on CD drives in cities.
Right. Originally it was PAL and NTSC, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the North American one was.
Right. Region A.
Right. So there was
Zero.
the American regions and the PAL regions, and Japan / some of the other Asianic countries had their own region. And if you had, let's say, a European Xbox, a European PlayStation 2, it was considered a PAL, and if you tried to hook it up to your television, the refresh rate was slightly off, and it wouldn't work right.
Mm-hmm. I know that nowadays if you buy OEM drives, they're usually marked as Region 0 or no flags that work with any content though.
Right, which means we had this the whole time, and regional issues are always dumb. Like, the Super Nintendo has a small plastic bit in it to prevent you from playing Japanese games on your American American Super Nintendo. And you can literally just snap that small piece off, and now it works for every game.
That was like the floppy drives with their little thing you could just tape up.
Right, kind of. Except this was like a plastic thing that prevented it from going down.
Yeah, it's true.
Not like importing cartridges was super popular in the 90s anyway.
Because if they broke, you just go...
Right, the hardware is literally the same. The only difference is they add a small tab so you can't do the other games into it because it physically won't fit.
Now, was that because they wanted to try to keep localization to the local areas that the game is localized to?
No, it was mostly to prevent importing. Because if a game is imported from Japan into America, taxes.
Oh. I also know a lot of Japanese games that are not afraid to not show any censorship.
There is that too. There was a lot of censorship when games were brought over, especially through Nintendo, who tried to erase all religious iconography from their games. Like the original Dragon Quest series had churches with crosses in them, and the North America version replaces the cross with a nondescript star.
Yeah. I know 4Kids does a lot of censorship for their TV show.
Yeah, but dumb censorship. Like, arbitrary, this thing's okay, this other thing isn't. Like, they're just, like, all over the place with their censorship. It's so dumb.
The favorite one I've heard, I watched, There's an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, Japanese version, where Teo was running down a tunnel and Yugi behind him, chasing after, yelled, "How do you know where you're going?" And in the Japanese version, Teo's like, "It's women intuition." But in the American version, they replaced it to, "I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing." Censorship.
Well, the other thing is, like, they had nippleless boobs in the Japanese version, and they covered them up kind of poorly. Or, like, the Tenchi Muyo famous bathing scene censorships, where suddenly everybody bathes in a swimming suit. So they just, like, straight up, like, black line draw cell by cell clothes on these characters. Or in Dragon Ball, where the one pig guy turns into a fish and they're trying to catch him. And in the American version, it's a poorly drawn stack of American money. And in the Japanese version, it's a pair of panties.
Or the invisible guns.
Oh, yes. I will point menacingly at you. And it wasn't until much later when I found out they were supposed to hold the guns where I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I don't understand who just jumps into an office and points at a guy. It's like, you're coming with us.
Yeah, and there was later on in the series when they had guns.
Oh, yeah, that's after 4Kids stopped doing things with them.
Oh.
Like, Pokemon itself, 4Kids has lost a lot of their licensing because a lot of people were just like, this is so dumb. Such dumb censorship. Oop.
That means it's time for Happy Fun Hour.
No, that means I got an email.
I know.
Okay.
I was just trying to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying.
Oh.
Oh, okay. So our next topic, the Google D-Wave quantum computer is 10 million times faster than a regular computer. What I want to know is what computer are they comparing this to? I mean, it kind of doesn't make much difference when we're talking about 100 million times faster. I don't know if you've read up on this and what kinds of things that this is used for. Mostly scientific calculation and optimization. So if you were trying to figure out the best way to like fit a circle in a square or something, it would, with thousands of variables, each variable with multiple aspects to it. These quantum computers would be great for it because they're using qubits. And like they can have like two states of ones, and because of the way quantum nonsense. But
it's weird double layering.
Mm-hmm. But this is basically like NASA and Google's computer that they bought from D-Wave. D-Wave has a website, you can look at their stuff. They got a promotional video, but really the only people it's for are like big organizations like Facebook, Microsoft, Google.
Well, part of that is the expense, I'm sure, to build it is ridiculous. Like, you have to be able to produce the income of a small country in order to get one yourself.
Yeah. Not for people like you and I. Although that would be sweet to be like, guess what I got?
Well, it sounds like it just crunches numbers. Imagine how many Bitcoins you can mine. Just all the Bitcoin mining.
With being able to do millions and billions of variables all at once, when they're like a server farm can really hardly do that many variables that easily. I mean, that's what this is for. It's for calculating things with almost infinite variables.
Right. Number crunching.
Yeah, weather.
It's a fancy calculator.
Yeah.
It's the world's fanciest calculator.
But don't expect to but can it play Crisis? That's not what this is for. And I doubt it could.
Yet.
I doubt it could do it with the way they have it configured. I mean, these computers are like 2 degrees within absolute zero, temperature-wise, just so that they can manipulate these qubits, because that's the nature of quantum computing. But anyway, so our next topic is how an insurer is now offering troll assurance for victims of online harassment.
Like life insurance?
Troll insurance. If you get trolled, online harassment, they will hire private investigators to figure out who's did it, and I don't like send guys to go to the house or something and beat them up. I don't know.
I think it's too vague to work.
You know, maybe if this was like, you know, like inappropriate picture, your phone was broken into and inappropriate pictures released.
Well,
kind of like stuff like that. I mean,
that's criminal. You can always get that investigated.
yeah, but
As of what was it? Not 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, they determined that in order to open up or to turn on somebody's smartphone and go through it, you need a search warrant now.
oh yeah,
Like as at a federal level, they made that decision. So I assume that if somebody opens up your phone and takes your pictures now out of it, or remotely access your pictures, it should fall under the same kind of breach of privacy as going to somebody's home and invading it
yeah, but you know,
and stealing.
but troll insurance just like, so are they gonna like get lots of claims like from like these 12-year-olds on Xbox be like, they did this, they like, you know, like if you're bad at a game, get better.
Well, and this goes back to the whole League of Legends thing, where just some places are filled with heaping piles of and you want to avoid that. If you are standing in a room full of you're going to step in it. Like at some point, if you spend enough time on 4chan or on Xbox Live or in your League of Legends, eventually you're going to step in the poop that you're surrounded in. And it's an inevitability.
I would never go into Xbox Live.
Well, you can, just don't have a headset. It's straight up easy to avoid.
Yeah, sure. I don't do
Also,
much.
don't buy an Xbox. Also very easy to avoid.
Yeah, I don't own an Xbox. I wanted to when I was a kid, before I knew computers like were a thing.
Well, back when consoles had enough on them where you had to get one.
Well, the PlayStation 2, I still say is probably
yeah.
the best console out there.
What, 2011? No, 2001 to 2011 was like they stopped manufacturing them 10 years later because people still were using them.
Yeah.
It has the largest game library still and is the most successful console. Right after the original game. Well, no, it's like PlayStation 2 and original Game Boy right afterwards. It's the two most successful consoles. You know, as it is.
So, okay. So did you hear about the Apple phone battery that they released? No?
No. Oh,
like
a battery pack cover? That's not new. Those exist already.
Yeah, but did you know, like, Apple released it?
Oh, that's fancy.
Because they're finally recognizing that, like, no matter how thin they make it, they really need to start, like, even if they have to make it a little thicker, put more battery life in these things.
Well, they have a decent amount of battery life.
Yeah, but if you're a heavy power user, I mean, if you
have an iPhone.
if you're a heavy power user, you're going to be on Android.
Right.
But still, I mean...
On a rooted Android device so that you can do all this other nonsense on it.
But it just felt like so tacky. Have you seen the picture of it?
Oh, it what, doubles the size of it? Well, that's not that bad. I mean, it just makes it the size of all the other phones.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't go from top to bottom.
No, it's like halfway. It's whatever.
Yeah, and it doesn't look good.
It's not going to sell.
No.
The people that have iPhones won't buy it because iPhone users are a very specific group of people. Just like people that have MacBooks also have iPhones and iPods and all the other things. It's one of those things that once you have one Apple product, you start collecting them just by proximity, and they start magnetizing towards you.
And that's all. So, okay, so did you hear HTML, the speedtest.net finally got upgraded to HTML5?
Yeah, it's about time. I mean, part of the issue with the speed test is like Flash itself is so weird. Like, yeah, HTML5 is the next best thing, except they're a little late on that. Like, Time Warner's speed test uses HTML5.
Yeah, and ever since...
It's not good, but...
Ever since YouTube went HTML5 for their videos, there really isn't any more reason to have Flash.
Well,
I mean,
yes and no. Like
Flash gains.
like Flash is still easy to learn and it's going out, but HTML5 is a little harder to finesse, and Flash still has some stuff going for it. Like, it's still really easy to work with. The other advantage HTML5 has is once you write it for one web browser, it works on phones.
That's true. It's just like competing with Shockwave. Remember Shockwave?
Yeah, except Adobe owned that too.
So why do they make two different products? that do
Because
almost the same
Shockwave
thing?
was supposed to compete with JavaScript.
Oh.
So Shockwave had some JavaScripty stuff, and Flash was Flash, and then once you could put Flash and JavaScript together on the same page, you didn't really need Shockwave. It was just superfluous.
Okay. So, did you hear the FCC rules about drones?
Oh, did they finally make a decision?
Yeah, like over like $250,000 fine, for not registering. Everyone has to register, like from £5 or like more than £5.
Oh, so if it's a serious drone, you have to report it.
No. No, I just no. What's that? £5? It's like 2.5. Or anything larger than those old micro RC ones.
Oh, well.
So everyone has to register with whatever, and there's a $255,000 fine.
Well, that's just to fly it outside of your own yard, right?
Just to buy it.
Oh, to buy it. So
And to use it, your name has to be attached. Like you gotta have a serial number in. There's like no fly zones, everything.
right.
It's
But
really heavy-handed.
if you buy it, or if you already have one and you're flying it just in your yard,
You will
you're
have
fine.
a reprieve of like 6 months before you have to register if you already have it for all pre-existing.
God, what about the people that bought it as a gift for somebody else? That is really all over the place. I guess part of it is there still is a large issue with people using it to spy on neighbors.
Right, but
Or that person that tried to fly it over the Pope.
laws only work for people who follow them. If people want to do something malicious, they're going to.
Right. But part of the thing is people were doing malicious things with them because there was no consequences.
Our new segment where Steve talks about magic. Steve, tell us about magic.
There is a new mana symbol in Magic, which is super exciting since the last time they introduced a mana symbol was the snow-covered mana symbol, which was a little snowflake in Cold Snap way back in the yesteryears of 2008. And so it's very similar along the lines of that, where the mana symbols that are snowflake means it can be produced by any snow-covered land. And in this one, it has to be produced by a colorless mana or a colorless mana source. So, like your lands that tap produce one colorless, will now have a new mana symbol associated with them, and the new Eldrazi, big Eldrazi dude, costs 7 and 2 colorless mana symbols. So the 7 can be from any mana source, like usual, but 2 of those, or 2 of the 9 mana required must come from sources that say tap and produce a colorless. And the expeditions are coming out, which are foil full art versions of existing lands being reprinted in place of mythic rares. And they all have the mana symbol, the new one, added to them. And they're going to go through Gatherer and change the Oracle text for everything. It's super exciting. They have made way more work for themselves than they need. Cards that currently produce colorless mana will now be will work for that. And it's a very elegant solution, and I don't know if it's going to last. Because, the snow-covered mana symbol for Cold Snap exists only in Cold Snap.
Right.
And it sounds like they want to make this a thing, and the last time they wanted to make something really weird a thing, it didn't last long.
Right. Yeah. Does anyone remember that though? Or did they try to really hard to forget it?
What the what thing?
The previous thing that they tried to make a thing.
Well, there's been several attempts to make mechanics that are kind of confusing, like Threshold existed for a hot minute. And the way that worked is that there are 7 cards in your graveyard. You activate Threshold across the board. And it was a really neat mechanic. And apparently, it was confusing. I don't know how it's confusing. Oh, that's right. So the thing that was confusing about it was people were like, the spell I'm currently casting, does that count as in the graveyard? Mm-hmm. The answer's no, it hasn't finished resolving yet. And the DCI was tired of answering that question. Over and over.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concludes our segment about Steve Talks About Magic. So our another topic we got lined up is how Mozilla kills the Firefox phone.
Yeah, so...
Does anyone remember the Firefox phone? I had to look it up.
I actually remember the Firefox phone because I signed up to do the beta of it.
Really?
Way back in the day. So what it was, originally what it was, is it is a special Linux version, or a special, so they took the Linux kernel and a special version of Linux, and what it does is as soon as the phone boots, it launches the Firefox browser. And then everything populates within the Firefox browser on your phone. So the Firefox mobile pops up, and you have the call buttons on the bottom, and then in the middle are all Firefox apps.
Oh.
So it's all self-contained with one larger containing browser. And that's a really cool idea, because you don't have to worry about whether or not the hardware is any good, because as long as it launched the Firefox, it's fine. And it would all go through the phone, and it was all HTML5 based, and it was a really elegant thing, but they immediately then turned to Android and were like, what if we just use Android? And then it was a really shitty Android clone, and then they I guess they finally killed it, which is fine. Like, the original implementation of it meant you could do it on lighter hardware, or the hardware you picked would be less taxed.
And probably cost a lot less.
Right.
Doing more.
So they did officially launch the Firefox phone in several small countries, not in the US. They released it in Taiwan, and maybe the few places in the US. And I know that it was a small release in Australia, but it was a smartphone, so all of those Firefox apps that exist within Firefox, or how Chrome has the Chrome apps, and so the Chrome OS and the Firefox OS were very similar in their implementation, where it launches a web browser and everything else exists within the web browser itself. Yeah. It was a smart idea. It was a neat risk, but there wasn't anybody that wanted to work on it because there was Android already, and anybody that would work on the Firefox OS already works on Android. They're like, why even do it that way? If it came out and tried to compete with BlackBerry, it would have crushed BlackBerry, no problem. It would have made a lovely BlackBerry jam.
That's evil.
But you can't compete with Android and iPhone with something that's supposed to run on really light hardware when everybody's like, my phone does all of this now. Look at Temple Run. Look how much Temple Run I can Temple Run.
Yeah, just look at the Google Nexus lineup.
Right. And they couldn't find anybody that would produce hardware for it. They had the OS lined up, and if you had a Raspberry Pi, you could run it if it was the new one, the one that has the ARM7 core. It can run the Firefox OS, no problem. And it's neat. It works. But it wasn't anything special, and I'm a little disappointed that it didn't work out for them, because I was hopeful, I, deep down inside, respect the Mozilla Foundation and everything they stand for, but I cannot seem to be able to hold on to their products because they wouldn't release it to anyone. They're like, oh man, we got the Firefox OS. You guys want to try it?
It reminds me a lot of the Google phone. The Google, like where everything ran inside of Chrome.
Yeah, that's literally it. Except then they're like, well, that was dumb. Android.
Same thing.
Or the Ubuntu phone. Yeah, that project popped up and died almost overnight. It was kind of about the same thing.
Right.
It was Ubuntu with phone apps built into it.
It's the problem is Android is entrenched.
Well, it's not that Android was entrenched.
It's everywhere. It's like HDMI cables.
Well, it's not that Android's entrenched. It's just Android works and it works well and they're still developing for it. And a lot of the issue is the Firefox OS or the Ubuntu phone or the Google Chromium phone, whatever. A lot of those exist in a very interesting space and would work a lot better than Android if you had lighter hardware, and nobody's doing that anymore. Everybody's moving on to better phones. And like they work really well in Transformer tablets. Like the Chromebooks. Really good idea. They work really nice. They're really cheap. The problem is you always have to have the internet. And if you don't have internet, most of your computer stops working.
Yeah, I never liked that about those online tablets. Tablets that require internet connectivity to really work.
The Chromebook, not so much now, but it used to be where if you didn't have the internet, you couldn't do word processing. You couldn't launch anything. Except for any games that you already had downloaded.
And we all know the internet's so reliable.
Well, it's more popular in Europe and like Canada, where
Internet cafes are...
where internet cafes are a thing, and there's a lot of good public Wi-Fi, and the internet is built as a public works project instead of like, oh, a cable company just walked through and laid a line down. You want to sign up for it? Here's a contract. I need your firstborn child. And yeah, then we can totally give you like
Yeah, in the U.S., they're trying to get the Federal Communication Committee is trying to like get the internet as a utility. I feel like we're almost there. It's not quite there, but it's like right on that cusp where it could go either way.
Right.
It could go deep into the hands of companies, or it could be pushed over into the hands of being classified as a basic human right. Didn't the United Nations are already there? They're calling it.
Well, the United Nations declare that internet connectivity is it's a right and not a privilege. And part of the issue is a lot of our internet in the U.S. anyway is also tied to cable companies. And television cable is not a right. It is what's the opposite of right? Privilege. There we go. It's a privilege, not a right. And there's so few competition in the U.S. There's Comcast and Time Warner Cable, and they don't exist usually in the same spaces as each other.
But there really isn't anything else besides them. I mean,
right, so part of the issue is way back in the 70s when the Bell company split and all of these Bell babies popped up out of that. Like your AT&T, your Verizon, your Time Warner Cable, all of that. They used to be one large corporation, and part of the issue is when they split, they decided what states they were going to take and then decided which ones they were not going to compete with each other in. And New York State has Time Warner Cable, but not Comcast. Massachusetts has Comcast, but not Time Warner Cable.
I think it's funny that...
Like, they don't exist in the same states because that's by design.
I find it funny that NBC Universal, its parent company Comcast, but NBC's headquarters is in New York.
Right.
I mean, both Time Warner and Comcast own part of
Well,
NBC,
I think New York City does have some Comcast in it, because it's New York City and it spans multiple states.
Oh.
New York City's a weird thing. Like, everybody exists in New York City. Like, it's one of the few places where you can get Verizon, Fios, Time Warner Cable, or Comcast all at the same time. But that's because a lot of these places are headquartered in New York City.
And
So, of course, they would provide it. But
That's
once
true.
you get out of New York City to the rest of the state that's attached to New York City, which a lot of people forget about, there's Time Warner Cable, or there's Verizon on occasion. Frontier is an option if you're really in a bind. Like, Frontier exists.
Well, you
sure
can get
does.
like satellite internet anywhere.
No. Oh, God. So, have you done satellite internet before?
No.
So
'Cause
here's...
I learned about it in my computer course.
Right,
Nope.
so satellite internet has very soft, or very easy to get past data caps. And the way it works is, let's say you have a 20 gigabyte download speed, or a 20 gigabyte limit on your satellite internet. But if you start downloading in off hours, like 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., it's free. That doesn't count towards you. So you have to make sure that all your devices are set to do their updates in those hours and that they're done before. And they won't be because the internet's utter shit. And the second you trip past your data limit, they don't charge you extra. What they do is they dial back your internet speed to worse than dial-up.
I don't like throttling, but throttling on the internet. I think it's cheap. I like Time Warner doesn't do that, thankfully.
Yeah, good, because I've seen how much how much shit I download a month. It's atrocious.
I might get 40 gigs right now. 50 gigs down.
50 gigs, and it's not even halfway through the month.
Well, Star Citizen had an update, and so did a few other games. Like, Steam just last night decided to download 40 gigs worth of updates.
Right, and if you were on satellite internet, it would still be going, and you tripped your limit, and now it's going to be a week before it's done. I used to do phone tethering because that was slightly better than satellite-based internet. And it's not much better.
Yeah.
The latency itself makes online gaming impossible. I had pings on World of Warcraft somewhere around like 3,000.
Okay.
It was Rubber Band City.
Welcome to the new to PC segment. Well, we help people who haven't gotten into computers, or maybe they're coming from console, and they want to get into PC gaming, where they should start. Steven, do you have any thoughts before I take it off?
Well, right now we're either in or coming up to the Steam holiday sale. If you haven't gotten a computer, or you just got a computer, and you have a pile of money to burn, and need to get like 200 games for like $100, Steam. Steam will eat your wallet and not even be sorry about it.
Yes, praise the Gaben.
Just, you can get a whole bunch of games that everybody plays, or some new games, and yeah, no, it's a great place to start is to go to Steam, see what's on sale, go, holy shit, I can buy Battlefront for like $20, whereas like $60 on console.
No,
Like-
yeah.
Yeah, the whole digital licensing for games is so much better.
Now, would you suggest a new person take the time to figure out how to order the different parts, or would you suggest they start off with the pre-built?
Always start off with a pre-built if you don't really know what you're doing. I have had several people ask me what parts they should get for a computer, and then they get the parts, and then I get the phone call, so how do I put this together? And, like, I can kind of describe over the phone how to do it, and I have successfully a few times, but, like, it's super aggravating when somebody spends $2,000 on computer parts and then asks you how to put it together.
Okay.
Like, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
If you're going to order parts
Who
to
has-
build a computer, Google that.
Who has $2,000 to spend? all at once.
Oh, a friend of mine from back at home is in the Navy, and he has all this money to burn. So not only did he get one computer, he didn't like that one, so he made another one too.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, and he's all the way in Hawaii, so it doesn't matter. Just I was super upset. He's like, it's not working out for me. What if I got an Intel machine now? Like, oh my god, you just dropped so much money. And you're like, yeah, it's not working out. I'll just get a new one. Don't be that guy. Just, if you're going to put a computer together yourself, have a friend in the immediate vicinity that can help you, or Google it. Do some research. People that have computers that they built themselves love helping new people out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a thing people do, but if you're going to go that route, be prepared to do it yourself. Or people are going to get really irritated at you.
Now, I'm going to argue the point that they should always make it themselves. And here is why. When you are first starting out, you need to just jump right in and immerse yourself right away, because there is absolutely no other reward, satisfying feeling that you get from building your own computer compared with you buy this new thing that you know nothing about, so when you get a game you have no idea how it's going to work or handle it. See, you got to be comfortable with getting in the guts of the computer. You can't just like buy this new thing that and check off the buttons. You think, yeah, maybe that's better, but you're not really sure. Like, you don't need an 8-core Alienware that's overpriced with a 980 mobile or 960M. No, you need a simple 4-core. Maybe a like a 780 or 760 at most, or an R280, an R9.
The other thing is
A full core.
expecting everybody that wants to get into computer gaming to just go out and build a computer is a little or a little not realistic.
They can take your computer class at lynda.com.
I mean, they could.
Computers.
They
Lynda,
could.
sponsor us, please.
There are frequently sales on gaming PCs on several websites, and you can get at least last year's good hardware cheap altogether. And yeah, sure, you didn't build it yourself, and there's a certain satisfaction to it. But if the person has like $400, it's sometimes better just to get the pre-built than try to throw it together yourself.
Oh, you can make a decent $400, $500 gaming rig, but put most of your money in that GPU. Get like a 950. Is that like $150?
Well, the other thing is you can get
go an AMD route if you're going to
if you're going to build a computer, go AMD because they're cheaper and also really good. But you can usually get a $400 or $500 computer pre-built that has an i7 on it, which in of itself is the best value of the computer, because most new i7s are like $700.
No, you can get them for like $300.
Right, but like HP can get them less than you and I can get them because of volume discounting. So they'll drop a good processor in these desktops that are meant for gaming that are pre-built because they get a better price for them and they still make a profit.
Yeah, but you really don't need like an i7. You can get away with an i5.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and you can still get a new pre-built computer for like $300.
I mean, you can get like Xeons on eBay for like $50, $20.
Right, and where do they get them from? People's computers that they don't want anymore.
Companies that have server computers. There was a thing that I saw where Linus on Linus Tech Tips, they compared two cheap $25 Xeons on a throwaway server board versus one AMD 8-core, and they performed almost the same.
Right, and
it was like on less than $150.
Right,
for the RAM and everything.
Well, that's certainly something. Like, a lot of people who got into PC gaming did not build their first computer.
That's true.
Did you build your first computer?
No.
I didn't build my first computer. Now I have a computer that I built. Like, you start with getting used to having a computer and playing on the computer, then you make a better computer.
Well, a lot of people...
You have to have something before you get something else.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a walking before you start running kind of
Look,
thing.
when I have kids, I'm going to, like, have them... When they're, like, 8, I'll have them build their own computer.
Right, and until then, they use your computer.
No, they're not going to touch my computer. They're going to get, like, a tablet or something.
Right.
They only get, like 3 hours a day on it.
Well, even then, like, a tablet with a Bluetooth controller is still a amazing system.
You get the new Surface Pro 4.
Okay, maybe not all tablets. But I have an Android tablet, and if you put a Bluetooth controller onto it, it's a pretty decent mobile gaming rig. Like, you can play, what was it, Dragon Quest VIII, which is a PlayStation 2 game, has an Android port that runs. It's ridiculous, just unfathomable to me sometimes how crazy things have gotten.
That concludes our new to PC segment. Okay, so our next topic, Spotify reportedly considering to make music available to only paid users. So it was like the Hulu back in the day, but with Hulu Prime.
Well, here's
That same deal.
Well, kind of. Like, Hulu is so dumb. Like, so one of the things, like, most paid streaming services, you pay for the product and the commercials disappear. You pay for Hulu and there's still commercials. The Like, if I'm going to pay money to somebody, the commercial should disappear.
Right. Now,
Like, they're making my money, and they're still making advertisement
but
money.
Spotify is an ad-supported music streaming service like Pandora, except you get to actually play the songs you want to play.
Right, but if you pay for Pandora, the commercials disappear.
Yeah, but what do you think about Spotify making certain albums only for paid user rather than just having them straight out there for everyone?
Well, I mean, that's their prerogative, I suppose. I mean, I don't use Spotify. I SoundCloud on occasion. I mostly use Bandcamp.
Yeah, but that would be like Time Warner turning down NBC because they don't want commercials. Oh, yeah.
Well, I was going to say cable companies do black out channels because they don't want them because they're not paying money.
That happened to
That
Fox.
happens a lot.
Yeah.
Sporting events are one of the biggest things. Like, if it's not properly negotiated before the sporting event goes off, it doesn't go off. It blacks right out. It's like, it's nothing different than what non-web-based entertainment does. And yeah, part of it is like Spotify making certain things available only to paid users is a smart move on Spotify's part.
As a business model.
As a business model. And there are some users that are like, that's awful. What about all this stuff that I didn't pay for that I was listening to?
With ad supported.
With ad supported, like, sure, they're a little mean for taking away your stuff unless you pay for them.
It's kind of, it reminds me of that YouTube Red thing where everyone was worried about how, like, certain content would only be available for paid users.
Right. And there's a certain point where you're like, okay, where does entitlement and responsibility cross the line? Like, I feel I am entitled to be able to go on YouTube and watch any of those videos for free. Even if, well, there's an ad that plays, sure, but after that I should be able to view whatever I want. Or, in order to view these videos, I must pay X amount of money per month in order to be able to watch them. And with, like, Netflix, people are okay with Netflix because there's no free Netflix.
Right.
If there is a free option and a paid option, people will very frequently not go with the paid option. Because if the free version works with the commercials, why should I pay for Pandora? Why should I pay for YouTube?
Well, I don't know if like AdBlock's been blocking out some of the ads, and that's why there was a paid version.
Well, okay, so here's the thing with AdBlock. Yes, if your website is based off of advertising revenue, and there will be X amount of AdBlock users per month, should you block people that use AdBlock? And there are some places that are like, yes, if you use AdBlock, you cannot use their website.
Yahoo Mail.
Hulu. Hulu
Okay.
will not play a video if you have AdBlock. They will not stop playing commercials even if you give them money to stop playing commercials. Like,
What's the point of that?
right. So, when people pay you money for your service, what they are doing is replacing ad revenue with more stable revenue. Like, instead of, like, maybe I'll get 30 cents of ad revenue from this person, or, I know, they will now give me $5 a month. That means I'm getting more money than I could have theoretically gotten. Of course, it's very hard to quantify this without hard data to go on.
Well, I'm sure they have statistics about how much
Right,
people want.
but that can only go so far. Like, you can't quantify this person is worth more to me because they're paying me than if I wasn't being paid by them. Like, that's on a case-by-case basis, and that's very hard to deal
Yeah,
with.
but you know how many people have a Netflix account and then they watch like for about 3 months and then they just peter off and not realize they're still paying Netflix.
Right. But the thing is, Netflix doesn't still show you ads even though you're paying money to them.
Well, I'm just using it as an example. You could easily be paying
Right, just
for the
Hulu.
service and
Hulu's-
forget you're paying for it.
Right. The thing with Hulu is, in order to be able to watch Hulu on things that aren't just a computer's web browser, you have to pay the money. And that's silly. Like, you can still do... Even if you pay the money to watch Hulu Plus on your Wii U, for example, it still plays commercials. Like, you're always making the money just by looking at them. And there's a certain point where that gets really, really annoying, so you get an ad block.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, fine. I'm just not going to give you any money because you horribly frustrate me. And that goes into other realms as well, like Windows 8.1.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for Windows 8.1, and I changed some hardware on my computer and was immediately locked out. And I had to call them, and they're like, oh, you can't reinstall with that license, it was an upgrade-only license, blah, 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 blah. And this is what frustrates people.
Yeah, those whole upgrade versus clean install license from Microsoft. I don't
Right.
understand that at
I
all.
almost always clean install my operating systems when I'm doing an upgrade, because there's less chance that something can go horribly awry. But apparently I couldn't, because of how licensing works. And software licensing is a quagmire. Just, Jesus Christ, it is so heavy sometimes.
But would you prefer license that's licensed to you as a person, or license that license to the hardware?
Well,
Because Steam, the game license, are to you as a person.
right, and if you open Steam in any other computer and log in with your account, you still have access to all your stuff.
Right.
And that's a good model. I want to pay for it once and be able to keep using it no matter what. And tying it to the hardware is the new business model, because now if the hardware changes, your license is no longer valid.
Which I think is ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
there are ways around it. Well, I was... no, I mean...
There's always an
When you-
illegal way around things.
When you upgrade your hardware, you just... Here's what you do. If you have multiple pieces of hardware you need to upgrade, just put them in one at a time. Well, place them one at a time. And then you reboot your computer, and then you turn it off again, you put the other one in, and then it's slowly
Right, that's fine unless one of the pieces of hardware you have to replace is the motherboard.
That's true.
And that will immediately trip that. Because they're like, I don't see what that was before.
Actually, I remember upgrading the motherboard in here, and it didn't ask me for a new license.
With Windows 10 or Windows
It was
8.1?
7.
Oh, 7. No, 7 didn't have that because 7 had the old licensing. Where the old licensing up to 7 was, did you have a key? And the key activated? Okay. Carry on.
Here's what you do. You keep your Windows 7 key, and then while we still can upgrade to Windows 10 for free, you just reinstall with Windows 7 and upgrade to 10.
Yeah, because that's not time consuming.
Well, I mean...
That isn't the worst way to do it.
If you don't want to pay for, like...
I Linux only now.
Yeah, that's true.
The GNU public license is... While there are certain legal issues in the background with it, because people are just like, I don't understand why you can do that with that license. Because the whole copyleft thing is really, really weird. Where you copyright things so people can't copyright them. So you copyleft them.
That doesn't make sense. It's like if I wanted to write a 5-minute story, that a few lines of the story and then copyright it just so that no one else can have it.
Well, so part of it is, with the OpenGL, like, I make this really cool program, and I have copywritten that program just so that nobody else can go along and say, this is mine now, I'm going to close the source off, I own it, I've copyrighted it. So you copyright it so that from this point forward, it has to be open source. It's a very weird concept.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have this listed under the OpenGL. Or not the OpenGL. The GNU public... Yeah, GPL. Sorry.
Our last
GPL.
topic. And AMD makes their open source game to compete with NVIDIA GameWorks. GameWorks is an API for game developers that is between the hardware and whatever program like OpenGL, like a Java or CUDA or
it's a
DirectX.
library. That's what that is.
Yes. AMD released their version of that.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
Except they didn't update the drivers.
No, they have.
I'm so glad that they did this thing.
They got they revamped their driver team development, so the drivers are going to be more. They're going to do from 10 to 6 guaranteed drivers a year, but they're going to be more reliable.
That's amazing. I feel that's better news. Like, hey guys, you can use your hardware again.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do.
That's exciting.
Okay, so this is about the end of the show. So I want to remind people that I'm giving away this bad boy right here. If I get 100 subscribers, it's the GeForce GTX 760. You'll be able to play games at 1080 or even 1440p because it's got 4 gigs of video memory. Yeah. So this thing retails for about $315 right now on Newegg. So you can get it for free.
It still plays games good.
Yes. And then you can learn to talk good
even.
like what I do.
Yeah. It plays games well. It has great support. People write drivers for it. That's a decent thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a decent thing.
So guys, if you liked what you saw, hit that like button. If you didn't like it, do what you gotta do. But if you really loved it, hit that subscribe button and share us with all your friends. Also, we have a Patreon page now. So if you want to see us continue to produce content, go over there and check us out. But if you want to see us produce, good content, not that this isn't good content, but let's face it, folks.
Better content.
You want better content. So if you want us to reach those goals, pledge $1, head over there. It really helps us a lot. So thank you guys for watching us. It really means a lot when we get these likes. And feel free to comment below your thoughts and feelings on every show. Alright guys, that's the show. I'm Tyler. This is Steve. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next episode.